Hello, recording in progress. Welcome. I'm just gonna do this again. I might even do it every night. Wouldn't that be fun? And I'm in a different mood. Obviously, you can tell by my voice. It's a little bit more low, less like woo. I was so like excited about the full moon yesterday. Now we've had the peak and we're beginning to wane. So I'm just gonna light this candle. This is the lucidity candle. And I will put it over here on my altar, which I did change the water to my shell, which actually a Vedic astrologer told me that that would help me. And I can show you my shell. Some people are not really into showing their altars, but I trust that you will put only good love and voodoo grace, not even voodoo, but like good love into this. This is my beautiful, loving altar. I love it. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I would like to do a little bit of clearing. I've got this Palo Santo in Peru. So they actually taught me like you do it like this and then you let it burn and then clearing the space. May all the people who join and this experience be full of love and grace and all the wonderful things. Clear, clear me, clear. So speaking about clarity, let's also speak into this beautiful clear water. It just filled up. Oh, it's abundantly overflowing. Look at this. Isn't this beautiful? Beautiful, clear water. Look at how gorgeous this is. I'm, I'm spilling it all over me. It's okay. It's so hot here. I can, it's nice. So, cheers to the love in all of our hearts, to the peace, to the bliss, to the human values awakening in humanity through each and every one of us individually, reclaiming and owning our sovereign, beautiful, sacred temples of our own embodiments. Cheers to that. And mine, of course. I have this thing that what happens to me happens to you. In Lakech Alakin, I am another you. So I've been thinking that since I was a young lass. I remember thinking about, I would read, and as you knew in the introduction, if you happen to listen to it, is that I had been looking at my life as what it would be to write about it since I was maybe 7, 6, something like that. And thought how interesting it would be to have a life of experience and adventure so that I can write something that is significant that can support humanity and inspire humanity. So, as life experience and adventure would happen, it's not always what you expect. Yet, I did study psychology, anthropology, philosophy, sociology in my undergrad and grad school, and always reading as much as possible and um, being curious about other cultures and other people. And, um, there can be points where you take in and where you integrate. So I've had a recent integration process. It's like you go and you like, woo, adventure. Oh my gosh, this happened. What happened? And then, you look at how you're experiencing it, interacting with it, reacting, how you're dealing with it. Is some of my old language spells I would probably love to shift, because like to deal is as if it's deal in I'm gonna deal the hand, what's the hand of this adventure. And oh no, the cards I got are not that great. um or they're great, they're wonderful, woo, jackpot. So You're going to get used to my knees going up and down. I'm on the ground here. I don't really have a chair unless I want to sit at my desk, and I don't really want to. So, anyway, so dealing with the adventure, experiencing, and what happens in the adventure. And so, as I spoke about yesterday, and I'll probably be speaking about often, is how to transform from trauma. This has been a deep study of mine, including experiencing trauma and then the aftershocks or the repercussions or the replays or the PTSD, the post traumatic stress disorder, where you're like darting your eyes left and right, and like everything is like a sensitive, loud noise, or like, and um, so I get that. And I think a lot of people get that. I mean, it's human nature for us to get into stress, into trauma. And there are all kinds of traumas. There's short term, there's long term, and there's ways to shift it or release it. And when it happens in our childhood, it becomes a part of our patterning. So I've done a deep dive on my own patterning, and knowing full well since I was younger that I could repattern that. And um, coming from a Silicon Valley family where my father was a systems analyst and he worked on mainframes and things like that, I was, kind of taught about the logic and reason of the code of a moment and math, and really looking at life in a way that was very picking it apart, analyzing it, discussing the system of it. And so when I, was 18 and then traveled to Europe and then came back and got a job, and before I went to school uh, um, to get my bachelor's, I was just natural at computers and intellectual kind of pursuits, even though I thought that I was going to go out there and be a photographer or a writer. Yet I felt like I had to hide it. Like it wasn't something that was a popular thing to do back then. It wasn't well known. I was 18 in 1988. So there I am, 18, going like, I'm going to be a journalist, and I'm going to take photographs, and oh, you need a camera and go to school for this, and okay, I'm not going to go to school for that, and so I'll just be a secretary. I was a receptionist and a secretary in a really awesome place in Palo Alto, and met some really interesting people doing interesting things. I'm so grateful, like long-term, lifetime friends. Alas, I also decided to go to the East Coast to go to school. Um, and it was a toss up between philosophy and psychology for me. And I actually went for philosophy because I wanted to do biopsychology, looking at the biology of how a psyche works. And this is like 1991 when I actually moved out. I think it was 91. My dates might not be exact. I would probably have to like really look at it. So I'm pretty sure it was 91, not 90, not it might have been 92. Um, but maybe it was 92. It's just one of those things I kind of have to maybe look at my old documents and stuff. At this point, it's over 30 years ago. So it's like, was I 21 or was I 22? And but I drove across the country and um, ended up going to a small women's college. And I thought that was appropriate because I really wanted to just kind of feel comfortable with being who I am and discover my intelligence and not feel overshadowed by men, which was a little bit of a challenge for me already at that point, even though I knew great men in Palo Alto, and my brother's a great man, and my dad's a great man. And I did have challenges with being what I call third generation feminist, and how we are aiming for a certain kind of equal footing in life to have choice that is, for our health. So, and our wealth, and, our families and our creations and society as a whole, like to have, for women to have a stake in what we are creating on earth, which is really interesting that I would speaking about this today as President Biden steps aside for Kamala Harris, a woman. That's just very serendipitous. It's a lot of synchronicity that I would be finally getting online to speak about this at this time. So, just for the presidential races, I'm pretty sure Biden is still president, but we're having our presidential races, and I'm definitely all for Kamala Harris myself. Oops, as a journalist, what I learned in my journalist classes in actually community college before I went to full college was we had great journalist classes in Los Altos in at Foothill College, and um, and it was, I just remember learning about bias and non-bias, and I was like, okay. So I just gave you my bias, and I learned early on about bias and non-bias. So journalists are supposed to tell what's happening without bias. Whether that happens now or not, integrity in what journalism is, that's a little bit, probably not in a lot of places. And so a lot of people have their own opinions, and opinions come from experience and knowledge and diversity. So where the woman's voice comes in, it's a diverse voice that's experienced. We're considered subordinate to males in the Western world and many worlds, but I know the Western world growing up in the US. And so being a subordinate woman in a place that is actually forward thinking, like Northern California, Silicon Valley, where people are creating new digital systems for the world to live by, like AI and all this kind of stuff. My whole family was pretty forward thinking. We're Dutch. I'm Dutch American, first generation American. I'm actually the only Dutch person in my family who does not have a Dutch passport, or hasn't. I tried. Um, Apparently, I can get some Dutch connections and get with the consulate. I had some people who are like, go to this consulate, they'll help you, we can help you. So maybe I can still get my Dutch passport. That would be really amazing. Alas, I've had quite an experience in America that has been, and then also in my travels to, third world, second world countries, and to learn more about different kinds of cultures and different kinds of healing modalities. I am really into meditation. And excuse me, drink some of this wonderful water. Cheers to us. So, so there were a few things I wanted to talk about. So I'm right now seem to have just stepped into the space of femininity, being third generation woman. And I've seen a lot in this. I've seen how my mother, who comes from a large family, how most or all of her sisters, including her, divorced their husbands for a kind of freedom. They were, housewives in the 60s and 70s, maybe 50s. But most of them divorced their original husbands in the 70s, maybe 80s. And so it just created this whole, like, I was a latchkey kid where, like, we literally had keys to our doors, like a lot of kids probably still do, like on a string, even not even a chain. And it was the key to the door so we could get home while mom was at work. And when I was really a latchkey kid like that, it was my brother was there, so my brother and I would watch TV, do whatever. My brother was kind of like my babysitter. and very good brother I have. I'm very thankful for him. Um, and so, that was part of the women's movement where a lot of women became women, single mothers, where the kids no longer had the mother there. They didn't have the family. They came home to TV. They came home, like that was us, in the 70s and 80s, we came home to TV. And then, later on, kids come home to cable television and, MTV. And then we had a little bit of that, but it was really much later and my family didn't get it. So and then coming home to the internet and computers, and now kids just have iPads, are growing up on iPads, and they have iPads in school, and so things are just happening. That is a progression, and a lot of people think it's not an evolution, but I really think it is. I think that technology that we're creating by me being able to communicate with you over this digital, ones and zeros of love and grace and voice and video. And um I still kind of had this romantic vision of writing, but literally in these times, I with my life, to sit and write, I haven't had the space and time to do it. Like I would love at some point to still write those books that I have begun, and but it would require like literally a month or 2 months of shutting everything out. So when can I do that? That will be the time when I'm ready for that. Right now, it's me being like, oh, look, I did my hair. Like, so I don't know if you see yesterday's, I did do the second conditioning, and it's part of my biohacking. And I'm like, wow, thank you, internet, for all this wisdom that I had no idea about. My family didn't know about. We just ended up getting frizzy hair, and but now I've been oiling it, and I've been doing these different treatments, and I've tried all kinds of things. And I did want to talk about that. I was thinking about that earlier today, before I hopped on this evening, um, is talking about the biohacking of my hair. And I call it biohacking because literally just like a couple of years ago, I felt like my hair was so unmanageable. I had, made it blonder than it is at the ends here. And then I was living on the beach and swimming in the salt water and being in the sun. And my hair just went like it crumbled, and it looked like white, like over blonde, and it didn't get the curls that I love, when my hair is in good condition. It's has a nice wave. And then I tried multiple ways of taking care of my hair that were not right for me. And one of the ways that a lot of people spoke about, and even my ex was like, listen to this girl, she knows what's up. And I literally was trying to ask her, like, but I'm trying to do that and it's not working. So tell me more about it. And he told me to basically shut up and listen to her. But I'm like, dude, that's why my hair's not looking good right now, because I'm trying to do what she said. But that was a moment where it's like, okay, guy doesn't know me very well. He's trying to tell me to listen to this girl, and I actually have a specific question because I am trying to do what she's recommending I do with my hair. And that technique is to actually not wash your hair and let your natural oils come out. I have tried that. I've been there and done that, and I will never do it again. I tried it 3 times, and you literally have to sit there and like 2 months of greasy, gross hair before you get to nice hair. And I literally did the 2 months, and my hair was like awful. And the last time I did the 2 months, I actually broke my back. So I remember being like getting myself into the bathtub, like with the crutches, and because I'm like hanging on this, like I had to go to the bathroom. I had to hang on bars that were, interesting enough, the person had another person in their house who had broken their back. So that's a little bit of what I want to talk about. Was so he had these bars already built, and it was very, very strange. I'm not going to go into very deep detail on that, but it goes back to like, what is magic? What are we doing with our spells, with our thoughts? And what are we creating? And is it okay that women, because I'm going to bring it back into what I'm talking about, feminism and the movement and the evolution of life, actually. um is it okay that women have their own word and their own way of being? My grandmother was allowed to go to school. That was early. That was her age group. They were allowed to read and go to school. And then I think they were allowed to vote even. I can't remember when the vote was. I need to get this a little bit more clear. And then my mother was, you know, allowed to have a bank and to be independent and to divorce her man and to have a job and be a woman that's like has her own view of what she wants to have in life. Um and then there's me, growing up with a family that was at war with each other, literally, because my parents divorced when I was 4. So that ended up creating, not just the trauma of separation of mom and dad, two totally lovely people who despise each other. Um, and, but also it ended up kind of making holes in the family where other people stepped in and created further trauma, which then separated our family more. And a lot of the trauma was around me. So then I'm like the scapegoat, and I'm the troublemaker. I'm the one that um, ruined the family, and it wasn't, my fault. There was actually like perpetrators doing things to me that was not normal and not okay. And I call it a kind of torture. And it wasn't my mom, it wasn't my dad, it wasn't my brother, it wasn't like a blood family relative. Like my people, my blood family is really, you know they mean to be in integrity. um and who knows, maybe this person thought they were in integrity to something that was like outside of our realm. But whatever it was to me, when I remember in my 20s, my late 20s and early 30s, being like learning about black magic, red magic, and white magic, and being like, aha, I think this was black magic, this was like cult experience. And back then it wasn't out that people are experiencing that now. Since then, I've heard of a few women's stories, a few people's stories, and I've been around the world and I've met people. And we a lot of people have the story of you know a kind of energy that is power over, and not necessarily the consent of the individual, and the individual being the child at the time. And I have so much to say about this because I've gone through a whole slew of experiences of basically having, my body was taken over as a child by someone who lived in my house that was not in my family. And I considered it a kind of torture, and where I disassociated myself, and I created like a fantasy dream world where I actually thought I was, talking and to other people and meeting them, and that we had a plan to meet. So, and the thing is that I had these kind of visions before was being tortured. So I already had this thing where I had out of body experiences. So yeah, and I was very connected to my dreams, so much so that I often had a reality that was outside from the actual, consensus reality. And so for me, dreams leaked into the real world, where I was seeing things that other people were not. And that was definitely interesting. And I definitely, my favorite show was Bewitched, Tabitha, ding, 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 and ding, like the magic stuff. So, and then Genie was my other one because grew up in the 70s. And then Bam Bam and Pebbles, I love them too. And then, of course, Scooby Doo. But um, so in the 70s, there was a lot of shows. I think they might even have come out of the 60s that were about magic, and it was really cool. Like that, because we didn't have a lot of media back then, but we still had some cool stuff. And right now, there's so much media, and it's you really get a choice. And I don't watch shows like I did then. As a child, it was kind of like the babysitter, the TV, especially, so the mother could have some peace and the kids, now that it's the iPad. Um, so I think that I would like to come to a point of what I'm discussing today. I'm still doing a little bit of improvisation and channeling. And I had a little bit of an idea that I wanted to speak about trauma and magic. And then I ended up going into the feminist movement, where I feel like I'm third generation, and that not that I intend to be a feminist, I just am a strong, potent woman naturally. And I really had visions about what I would do with my own potency, and then how that was hijacked. Hijacked as a child by the torture, and then, hijacked later by society, by me not being able to, and I'm taking responsibility rather than being victim and blaming and shaming the others, because we're all in this dance together. So I just see that where I lacked was the ability to create boundaries and also communicate what my needs were, which is, to have a boundary in certain situations. And due to my experiences, including my birth, um, my boundaries were um, taken over quite a bit. And so that's another really interesting subject is looking at what in grad school they called the perinatal matrices. So it's looking at your birth being, quote unquote, the first traumatic experience of the baby being born. So depending on how your birth has been, and where's my yoga? I might usually have I have a little bit of some like knee and back problems, so excuse me as I fumble around. I'm looking for my yoga blocks. They're over there. I will just deal without them. Um, Hopefully my knees will be okay. But so the perinatal matrices and birth. So every person has a way that they were born, and that's considered the first pattern that was made for trauma or extreme experience. And that pattern lays a seed for patterns that happen throughout your life. So when you look about, trauma and shift, and, how we deal with life, that's could be a really interesting space to look at. And I looked at my birth and thought, I actually went into the dream space about it. And I call it dream space because that's the offering that I offer. I guide people through what I call the dream space, but it's really kind of like the subconscious, the superconscious, and the conscious at the same time. And it's a potent experience, and I'd love to start giving those again, and I will be soon. Some people are excited. I have some clients from the past, and more coming in. And alas, in the dream space, there's also the grounding to remember the embodiment. So I've gone through a regrounding moment. And so I kind of go in and out of like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So right now I'm grounding some thoughts and some feelings by creating this um personal podcast. I think it would video cast. I might, well, it's Lotus Love Dreams. That's me. And so perinatal matrices, for instance, when I was born, I I was born December 28th. And so it's like the children of what is it? I forgot what it my mom always says, you were born on the some sort of children's day. Like a lot of children were actually murdered on my birthday before I was born. So it's kind of like a children's holy day, like a to celebrate the spirit of those children and help them be in good space or something like that, or protect the children day. And so it's interesting because it's like that's what I feel like doing. But the children, all of us being children, like me being a child of earth, of life, you being a child, we are all children of the world, children of each other. And um, but we're adults, we're mature, we're different ages, sure. But I guess a lot of people call it, oh no, I don't want to say that. Yeah. Okay. Something just came up that, well, I guess I'll say it. Like I was like, a lot of people say we're children of God, you know. And then that brings me back to where did I hear that? Is I'm not religious. I haven't followed a lot of religions. And but there was a cult that called I think it's called Children of God, and or something like that, where children were similarly taken over as I was, or I call it torture because I just don't want to get into the depth of, you know, CSA, child sexual abuse. You know, I'm a survivor, but I'm actually a thriver. I'm here to thrive. I'm here to come through this. I'm here to support people coming through it. And I've actually made sexuality a deep study of mine through my own experiences and growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, where people are very bold about their sexuality, and where, you know, hate Ashbury, where people did a lot of experiments with psychedelics and sexuality and the cosmos and, you know, embodiment. And so I was born in San Francisco, and I kind of laugh about it. I make this little joke about how you know, they call us different kinds of generations, different kinds bring different kinds of energies. So maybe I'm an early indigo, if we want to think of it that way. And so I think about like all these amazing people in the 60s feeling like that they're, you know, before I was born, that they're like the children are going to come and create a revolution. And I really feel like there was a lot, and I know there was a lot of like excitement about how we're going to change the world and how we're going to become more aware and expanded. And I believe that that's happening, and we are evolving, and we've had some ups and downs, and it's kind of like a spiritual emergence. So I personally have had my spiritual emergencies emerging into the evolution that is now speaking to you. And I'm still surprised I'm doing this, but then again, I'm not. I definitely thought it was going to happen in a different way. I had some visions of of what I wanted to do and some dreams, yet I didn't know how to activate them. So I've made it a study of that. And one of the reasons why I didn't know how to activate them is because what was activated instead of my dreams was my nightmares, my traumas. So on one of my websites, I say dreams, not nightmares. And I'm Lotus Love Dreams because it's coming from the darkness into the light, and like dreaming our life into the reality we want to create, which is working with the undercurrents of, you know, what's happening beyond a parent reality, or the current awareness, or the conscious experience, which a lot of neurobiologists, psychologists, scientists say that the tip of the iceberg of consciousness is 2 to 5% of our existing, brains and mindful and body experiences. So that being that we have the subconscious and then we have the superconscious. I was just speaking with one of my associates about the superconscious, and we're going to talk about the superconscious on my podcast where I interview people. That's called Technology of Self. Also, just starting that, and um, definitely I'm finding it appropriate where this Lotus Love Dreams is talking about my experience, and I'll be offering my personal offerings, and that's me. I'm Lotus Love, and I'm dreaming that we come into the light as humanity, and I'm here to love us through that journey. But also, I've been studying it really deep and experiencing how to come through myself after trauma, after being third generation, um, you know, woman of the modern world, and what happened in my family, with my mother, with my father, with my experience being molested, tortured, drugged, tied up, like literally, yeah, some of that happened, really. And so, that whether it's titled or not, it was a kind of black magic, because it was power over me and trying to manipulate my psyche into some sort of place that I did not consent as a child. And so this is happening to a lot of children around the world, that they don't even have a chance to consent, and a lot of times they're tricked into these kind of spaces, or maybe they there's a part of them that wants to go there. Like I have a friend who fantasized about what happened to me, and I dreaded it, because that was not my person. I'm 7-year-old, like I wanted to have my sacred body for my person, for my love. I wanted to connect with heart and soul, and to me that's evolution. And a lot of this space that's been going on in San Francisco Bay Area and the rest of the US, and maybe even more of the world. I'm first generation American, so I experience the US quite a bit. And is that we're supposed to be experimental with our sexuality, and we're supposed to go beyond whatever the norms are, because norm is not normal and norm is not cool, and we're supposed to be diverse, and um, you know, and a lot of us were traumatized sexually as children, whether we're being made fun of for our looks, which is kind of like a sexual indication of attraction. Attraction connects to sexuality and creation. Sexuality is a kind of creative force. We are sources of energy, and how we use the source within, how we tap into that and create a momentum that is a, a force, or an influence in the world, is based on our creation, our creativity, which is in a sense kind of a sexual union of things or entities, ideas, people in space and time into, boom, creation. So that's looking at the binary, and the yin, the yang, how these two things come together and swirl and create one. And so I like to look at sexuality as being in everything. So the Vesica Pisces, you have these two circles, and they're separate entities, and then they come together, and then they make a third space in between, and that third space is another creation. So if you see like a color blue and a color yellow, and you put them together, they make green. So that's a new experience when these two different entities come together to create a third reality. And in a sense, that's a child when a man and a woman come together, or it's a business when two business partners come together, or it's a drawing when your hand and the pen come together on the paper, but then that's like three things. And this is where looking at the geometry and the sacred geometry of different objects, different entities, different ideas coming together to create a reality. Alas, so that I will leave there for the moment, and because I was talking about creation and the feminine input into creation and her desire to create a reality that she loves. And I feel that this is truly a deep and potent evolution when the woman's voice and desire is loved and respected. Because if that is loved and respected, what could happen there? It, of course, depends on the woman, it depends on the man. And when we can think about things in masculine and feminine, and males have feminine sides and women have masculine sides. And yes, I know all of this. And yet I am female. So, and I was born female and I'm still female. I have all my parts and I'm fine with it. I love it. Although I rejected it for a long time and I was a tomboy. Literally, I had moments where I was pretending I was a guy or I was a B girl and I wore the big fat jeans, hanging down, and I had shaved hair at one point. People thought I was a dyke and I was like, no, I'm not a dyke. And I didn't enjoy that because I liked guys, and I was wondering why the guys didn't like me. Well, they didn't like girls with short hair. Oh, and everyone thought I was gay. And I was like, no. And then I was like, I have muscles, and then I was doing like a masculine job working in the digital realm, being in technology, digital technology hubs. I keep on saying hubs. Um, Incubator kind of like think tank kind of space, new systems, innovative systems for the new digital world. I totally was into that in my 20s big time. I was one of those initial startup, um, they called me Imagineer or Visioneer, and it was very exciting to think that I was creating the new world, digital world. Alas, our startups and our incubators and our ideas did not pull through completely, or they did. At one point, parts that I had created, I believe, were sold in chapter 11, so I did not get my IP. And I'm still kind of piecing this together because I was still kind of like in my early 20s and hadn't learned about how business works and what are my rights and what happens. But at that point, I wasn't planning on doing that. So, I hadn't spent the time to learn the legalities of that. I was still planning on um, being that journalist, that writer, that photographer, and that speaker online. And but I was, we didn't have the system, so I was building the system, and I built first profiles online. And when our company filed Chapter 11, I was getting interviewed for what I was built by like some people that I was like, oh my God, you're from that company. And like, what I felt like was large companies at that time. And I don't know who those people were really. And I didn't really follow up on it. But then I moved to New York City and I got a job offer at the United Nations. This other company called Groups called me saying, we've got your software. How do we use it? And I'm like, huh? And I didn't get it. And then another group of people said, "We're in San Francisco. How does it feel to be the first woman on the web? We want to interview you. Come to San Francisco." And before we had satellite, before we were fully digital, before we had Zoom, before we had iPhones and things like that, when we were still writing science fiction about what it would be like to have this, like that's kind of where we were in the 90s. And so I did not make it out to San Francisco to make it to that interview. It was from Geek Girls, so I only have the memory of them. And I was like, "How did you find out about me?" They never replied back to me. So I started getting this kind of space of being like, "Okay, so I just got invited to the UN. These people are asking me about the software I created. This other group is calling me the first woman of the web." And um, then I went to Burning Man, met a guy, and that was crazy. And I became very depressed. And I lost a lot of like my verve. Um, and then I had another boyfriend who I met through all these dyke girls who like me. And I don't know if that's the proper word. So excuse me, lesbian, women who like women. I think, LGBTQ, what, 23222. Um, so, and I met the guy through these women who wanted to be with me, and he ended up being my boyfriend. He was sweet. And then we had the dot-com bomb, and I was already doing design in another place. And then I skirted off to Hawaiian Islands and went for sustainability, kind of living off the land. And so why am I saying that part? I think it's just, part of the story that just kind of goes, and then this, and then this, and then that. Because being 54, I've had quite a few adventures, and being the person who wanted to adventure and write about it and who's now speaking about it. I mean, I have, partly written books about my adventures. But I just really felt like I wanted to be in a good place before I fully spoke about this, because I did have a lot of chips on my shoulder. I had a lot of challenge with the traumas that I experienced, a lot of confusion about it. And at this point, I've done a lot of study, and including, the history of sexuality. And I'm still want to study more of that. And I'm going to have a Tantra um, expert on my other podcast, Technology of Self, pretty soon. He's now 9 hours ahead of me in Ibiza, so we might wait until he comes back to the Turtle Island or North America, so we can be at least in a similar time zone. Although I am already staying up late. It's 10:45. Oh, so I think that I've been going for an hour already. So let me just try to see if I can. These are just some of the things I'm going to be talking about here. And it's also, these are the subjects that I've written the books about, or started writing the books about. And it's also the subjects that I've been creating courses on. And it's also where I'm going to continue learning, so I can be really educated on how we can evolve, and not just educated by, reading experts, but, I've had a lot of experiences myself. So continuing the experiences and becoming more and more capable of helping people come through spiritual emergence, because that is what's happening to a lot of people, and that's what's going to happen more. And part of my grad school in philosophy was that we were talking about this emergence of a new space. We call it the ancient future. So it's like we're recalling the ancient, which is like connected to the land, connected to our magic, connected to our senses and ourselves, connected to each other, connected to the moons, more connected and less, object, subject, you know, um, physics or science oriented, and less, I mean, great things, but as people who are aware of philosophy and science, there were always different kinds of sciences or philosophies vying for reality, consensus reality, and agreement about what life is about. So that's where, excuse me, I'm burping up water. No, that must have been the chocolate that I had earlier. Um, so the consensus reality about, that's where there's religious wars and things like that, or diversity, and you've got to be the left and the right, and things like this, and the 1%, the 99%, and a lot of this separation communication. There's the whole world has been based on separation, as we have come through history of them and us. You over there and me over here, we're not the same. And so you stay over there and I'll be over here, or something like that. Or that's mine, not yours. These whole things. So, and that kind of creates a kind of lack consciousness. So, these are subject matters that a lot of people are thinking about and talking about, and I've and feeling into and discovering how to work with that. And definitely I had lack consciousness, coming from a single mother, and her, trying to figure out how to survive, and then me getting a job at 14 so I could put food on the table, and then paying rent at 15 so I could have my own bedroom and things like that. So there was a lot of fear, like, are we going to survive? And I think a lot of people have that in single moms, but also like other countries, other like, and we're and the legacy of humanity in our intergenerational ancestral memory. So these are a lot of the subjects I would like to really dive in. Right now, I'm just kind of like grounding the space by bringing it up and talking here and there about things. And I feel like I will get a little, get more and more compositional, composed about what I'm writing. Yesterday's thing where I'm like super jokey and like woo and spazzy, and today where I'm just like, boom, hopefully my voice isn't too monotone right now. I know that I can get very monotone, and also in coming from the Silicon Valley technology group and company, you just want to make sure you don't put emotion into your put myself to sleep. Um, had to have a little jokiness in there. So I feel like I've already been an hour, and I would like to not be too long, but maybe every single one of these will be an hour, especially as I grow with this. So I'm just gonna let myself, ooh, my favorite heart home. So I saw this was on the bottom of the deck yesterday when I watched my yesterday's piece. So heart home, compassion. So I have compassion for humanity, and I have compassion for all that we have gone through. I have compassion for what I have experienced, and coming to compassion for our own experiences, for our ancestors, for our neighbors, for people who are stuck in war and don't know peace. That's a struggle space within, and we have nations, we have people in that space. um, so I really believe that coming into peace is within each individual, is a part of our evolution, and what, we've created this internet, this technology, so that we could connect with the wisdom of the world. And I wrote about this in undergrad in like the early 90s, about how the future of the web would be that we are weaving together the best knowledge. And that is what's happening. I know what to do with my hair so it doesn't frizz out, and so it can be long, because of the internet. Like, I didn't learn that from my family. My mom's finding out from me now. We're like, oh, exchanging these ideas on how to take care of ourselves. And my mom just got into reels. She's like in her 80s and she's like, I just discovered reels. I'm like, Mom, finally. It's so cute. I when I discovered reels, like and my phone doesn't really work properly, and like it has something weird with the speaker or the mic. So, and then people stole my phone before, and a couple phones, and living in Tulum, Mexico, where you're a target, and nice iPhone looks good, and or you're ungrounded and you don't realize where your things are being left and people are picking it up, so that kind of um yeah. So I'm that's why I'm doing full throttle YouTube, and maybe I'll do shorts and reels at some point. I'll cut some of these things up. I'm just wanting to make the material and was not satisfied with the sound or the look or feel of the phone, especially, and not comfortable with the lighting or the location. I like or my design or whatever. So this I'm pretty happy with, and I've always loved YouTube. So this is just going to go on YouTube first as the full version, and at some point I'm hoping I'm going to chop some things up and put it on my Instagram. And who knows, maybe my TikTok, depends on whether I have a VA or not. And gosh, I have so much to talk about, and I actually owe some people some videos. So I'm also going to be doing those, and I'm just going to aim to do it every night, because I am this person that thinks and studies and speaks and sings and has an urge to express. And I have a lot of Mercury energy in my charts, and yeah, the I can talk about what's actually happened in my charts at certain times. So that's another thing, is we studied that in grad school, as we studied different people's charts and what was happening in the world according to the charts and according to our charts. And I am such a believer now. Before I was like, oh, I love astrology, but I don't know if I believe it. I wish I could. But then grad school philosophy, um, philosophy of consciousness, I learned about, and cosmos, I learned about astrology, and it's just saved my life, because I'm meant to be a communicator. So anyone who tells me you're too much, you talk too much, you sing too much, telling me that I shouldn't dance, I shouldn't sing, I shouldn't um, write, I should do this and I should do that, because I shouldn't do all these other things. They're just off their rocker, because I'm on my own rhythm and swing, and that's actually what I'm here for. So, and that's part of my trauma, is that I did not live what I'm here for. So now this is my moment of doing that, but it's also all divinely orchestrated in the cosmos, because I just had a major clearing of a lot of Pluto energy in my Mercury, which is Mercury is so Pluto just passed Mercury for a few years. Is conjunct my transiting Pluto was conjunct my natal Mercury for the last few years, and I would say that that was definitely quite an experience. That was a major part of my spiritual emergence that I would love to speak about. And so it's really cool. I'll be talking about these things in regards to, I'm going to pull this, in regards to Feast of Plenty, choices and their consequences. So yeah, yeah. So I'll be talking about that, obviously, um, because though we might have things written in our chart, it's also how we interact with it. And having Pluto in my Mercury was really investigating and diving into the depths of the darkness of my own spells. So, and spells being like what I say, what I think, what I feel, what I do. And even though I intend and have always intended goodness on earth. I had a lot of traumatic experiences and a lot of sorrow, and I was jaded and distrustful and repeating my traumatic patterns until I did this deep dive into it where Pluto was bringing up all that intense energy. And then it was like really looking at my communication. And that's one of the things I have designed for is a communication platform and app to help us upgrade our spells or our communications. And I'd love to share more about that some point. We are looking for sponsors and investors, so please say hello. I'm also available to guide people through their subconscious and superconscious and consciousness. I'm very, if we can work together, we'll have to have a discovery call first, and know that openness is available to our connection. So, and it'll be, just a rare people, and I'll probably be doing it in group over time, depending on how things work. But that's part of the vision and always has been. So I'm very excited that I'm here, that Pluto is going into Aquarius, that it's getting beyond my Mercury, and that that I can help people upgrade their spells and lives, and like through at least my communication about my story and my experiences and how it relates to the cosmos and the times. And but also I'll be bringing in experts or people that I love, and I love their stories and their ideas and their science and their experiences on my podcast, Technology of Self. I have some wonderful guests coming, so always, of course, welcome likes and subscribes. Please do that. Please share. And if you know people that would like to sponsor, that'll create more momentum and quicker to bring things out, because then I'll be able to have people help me edit things, and I'll have more time for creating the content. So thank you. And if you'd like to hear more about this, let me know. I'm going to aim for once an evening for 30 days. That's what they suggest for Instagram. Maybe I'll do it for YouTube. It's easier for me on YouTube because I can do it on my computer. I have this backdrop set up. I have the light. Um, and so I find it a little bit more difficult to 1101 to be on a phone, honestly, because I don't like the way it feels. Like I'm actually really sensitive to the energy of sticking my finger on the phone. I don't like the way it feels. I actually have a little bit of a problem with my nail from and so it's like well, that's another thing that I offer. And I say because it's other people who built the systems, is like ways to detox from electromagnetic frequencies. So when I touch the phone, I get too many electromagnetic frequencies, and it actually makes my skin funky, and my internal space. I can feel it. Like it's just it doesn't feel good to me. So I'm not that person that's always on the phone, but I'm also, older. I grew up on the computer. So, but it's easier. I can do the multi-hand thing. I have touch screen on this one too. I can have the trackpad. I can move it all over the place. But yeah, when I'm laying down, the phone is like this, if I'm going to be doing something. So I might get used to it, but really I would rather just hire a VA and get sponsors and have people help me out. But in the meantime, I'll be putting things out and the way I can, and this is the way I can. So thank you. I'm just going to pull one more card for the evolution of humanity, because this is what we're discussing. This is what wanted to come out. Lost in space, needing direction. Wow. Where's the best way for you to see that? I agree. And that's why I've been studying for so many years. This one wanted to come out with it. Skywriter, the fates. Wow. So the fates are like what's going to happen, the destiny, like what's fated to happen. And but it's is it written in the sky? Like I was just saying, the sky being the astrology, being when you're born, these are potentials, these are energies, these are um some people can have the same or very close astrology and have totally different trajectories, but then they have an essence that's similar. So it's really about how we do write our fate, our destiny, our lives, our potential, our worlds, and we each have the ability to write our own world. So that's why I talk about the spells that we speak and how we write and how we command this vessel, which I call our bodies dream vessels, because really we are conscious, subconscious, superconscious. We are mind, we are brain, we are heart, we are gut. So I talked about that in the beginning, like the three brains they call it, but then mind is everything. Mind is the brain, is the heart, is the gut. That's my some of us believe in that. And it's every cell, it's the nervous system, and it's also the auric field, and it's how we connect. So I'll also be talking about that. I love quantum physics from what I know about it, quantum entanglement, mirror neurons, heart fields, morphogenic fields. I'm just, I love all that vibe stuff. And I'm so happy that I'm finally in a space where I'm not working from a traumatic reaction space. But I'm also in a really gentle, kind of easy space right now. So I'm working on solidifying that so I don't get reactive out in the world, which can happen if I get into my traumatic mode, and or if something traumatic happens, like climate disasters, which happened to me a few times. So, that's really unsettling. Or, people fighting or people not liking you and, hating you for some reason. Maybe because you're from the US, a lot of people don't like people from the US. And that's kind of like what one of the things I've experienced as a traveler. So I'll also be speaking about travel, and I'm just going to aim to do communication each night. So that means I have to put makeup on every day and make sure my hair is in good space. I like it. Can you believe that? So I just want to say, I mean, you probably don't know what my hair looked like before, but I'm just like, wow, it's like shiny and it's not frizzy and it's soft. And so I'm just going to give a little bit of biohacking advice to let you know what I do there. If it works for you and you're interested, before I go, just because I mentioned it and I'm going to be mentioning these things, my secret with this, which I discovered, which took me a lot of study, looking things up, and well, thank God for advertisement, like advertising me, like, hey, do this, or the algorithm bringing me, because I'm looking at um how to do the hair. And so what I do is I castor oil and coconut oil my hair once a week, by so, and I basically goop it on, brush it through, put it up, and then put a cap on, and then I go to sleep. And at this point I use so much castor oil that I'm like, okay, my sheets are oily. And I put on, the things and the caps and stuff like that, but it still kind of gets around. So I wouldn't recommend that if you want to like keep your sheets nice. But and I sleep naked, so it's like it doesn't worry, no, except for my castor oil and my castor oil bandages, or whatever you call them, the flannel pieces that are cut out for castor oil packs. So I do a lot of castor oil on my face, on neck, on belly, on places that I want to break down calcified spaces or lumps, and I have some calcified spaces and painful places in my body. And also, castor oil actually takes out the toxicity out of the hair. Like I was living in Mexico where there's a lot of lime in so my hair was probably had like a lot of like crusty things in it, like that was just stuck there. So the castor oil gets the crusty stuff out. It detoxes the hair, but it also nourishes it. But it was kind of I did that just castor oil for a little while, so now I'm doing it with coconut oil, and that's the magic sauce for me. And I add rosemary essential oil, and then and I don't always add the rosemary essential oil because I'm also doing the second part of it. So I put the pack on for overnight, sleep in it once a week. And then I am now doing an additional thing, which is making it even more soft and amazing, is that I am doing flax seeds, whole flax seeds and whole rosemary. That I just go get the rosemary in my neighborhood. There's a lot of rosemary bushes. My mom has a rosemary bush that's like taller than both of us as well. I'm like, oof, huge. So I can just go to my mom's house and be like, I think you need to cut your rosemary, mom. It's like a hedge. It's a hedge of rosemary. And it's tall. I've never seen anyone who had my mom's a gardener, so she loves making things look cool. And so I put the flax, the whole flax. I've also tried ground flax and put the ground flax in my hair, but then you have to wash it out and stuff like that. So um so after I wash the oils out, I feel like I'm going way too long. I might have to separate these. But you wash the oil out, and then for me, I'm just trying it this way and it's actually working. And then afterwards, I put in the water, and I do 6.0 water from my special Kangen water machine, which I also sell. So if anyone's interested in having good water at home for their body or for drinking, it's wonderful. This is also beauty water. I spray it on me constantly. And so my face is hydrated. It's also hot, but it's just really nice to be constantly hydrated. And I've just bought some Damascus rose oil, which is from Turkey, or I will be actually. And I'm going to add it to this because I love rose oil, and I run out and you have to shake it a little bit. I haven't learned actually how to, um, some people do it in distilled, I guess, but I can do it in the 6.0 and see what happens. 6.0 water, it's clean water, and that's actually, it's called beauty water, and it's the pH of your skin. So when I first started doing that, oops, I love an 11. Okay, then I put the rosemary flax on my hair for an hour, and then I rinse it out with the 6.0 water, and I I put conditioner in, and then I rinse it out, and then ta-da, that's it. So that's my secret to my wow hair at 54, and after it was frizzy and sun damaged and lime and whatever and toxins in it. So thank you, 1111. Good night, good day, good life. Thank you for seeing this space, and here we go. End. Stop. End.